report released by the Oxfam International related to the inequality. The report is saying that in the last year, during the COVID time, the growth of the top 10 Indians is increased by 112% per day. Means they are giving a data of 3,608 crore rupee increase per day. Or this is appear in the news as well. Ambani, Adani are become the world richest person, some of the Asia richest person, and the one is the world richest third, fourth ranked person. So this report is saying about the gender inequality also. Difference in the wages of the male and the female, difference in the wages between the village workers and the urban workers. So we will look into the Oxfam International as well. Also, the inequality is measured by the Guinea coefficient. We will also look into the Guinea coefficient. Guinea coefficient hai kya? And also see the graph of it. Okay. So according to the Oxfam reports, the survival of the richest of the Indian story, the richest 1% in India now own more than 40% of the country total wealth. Means the report is saying 1% of the top population contribute to the 40% of overall wealth of the India. And the similar report is saying the 50% of the bottom is contributing only 3% of the wealth of a country. So this is data between 2020, 12 to 21. So this is the rate of inequality in the country. Bottom 50% is contributing only 3%. And the top 1% is contributing 40% of the wealth of a country. Like jab pehle hota tha, anybody know the Darwin theory, survival for the fittest. Now it's the survival for the richest. If we see the 3-4 year trends after the COVID, the poorer become the more poor. उनके पास पैसा ही नहीं है, and the richer become the more richer. जो पहले से ही पैसा है, they are growing more and more on a daily basis. So this is the report overall saying about the in the Indian context. The report is released at the Singapore in Davos in a World Economic Forum meet. On the first day, Oxfam International released this report. They released the Indian supplement of its annual inequality in the World Economic Forum annual meeting at the Davos. The report states that taxing the top 10 Indian at a 5% rate can give education to all children in India. It's an NGO, it's representing their reports in the World Economic Forum meet, annual meet. So the report is saying, if we tax 5% only, extra tax to 5%, top 10 richest individual of a country, top 10 individual of a country, it can contribute to the right to education to all children in country. सबको education दे सकते हैं, all children back to school. So this is a type of the rich person in India having a too much wealth contributing to the very small people in the country. So here we can see the Switzerland, and the meeting take place in the Davos. So if the location can be asked about the Switzerland के आसपास के country, we can see Germany है, France है, Italy है. These are the country bordering the Switzerland. Some of the major findings of the reports क्या हैं? Number one, gender inequality. They are saying if for the same work, if male is getting 1 rupee, for the same work, the female is getting 0.6 rupee, means 60 paisa, 63 paisa. So female is getting the 63 paisa, but male is getting the 1 rupee. If I can say, if the male is earning the 1 lakh rupee per month for the same work, the female is earning 63,000 per month. So this is a type of inequality they are saying. And also at the village level, village worker, they are saying they are, if at an urban area, we are contributing a 1 rupee, and then at the village level, only the 55 paisa. So for the equal work, they are the unequal pay. If I can say it's mentioned in the DPSP, welfare of the society, equal pay for equal work for male and the female. But the present condition of India is showing that there is an unequal pay for the equal work. If a female is doing the same work, she is getting only the 63 paisa, but the male is getting the 1 rupee. In the case of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and in the village worker, the rate is another less. It's a 55%. Means if a male is earning 10,000 rupee, then the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe people is contributing only the 5,500 rupee. So in the village level, the inequality level is more high in a case of inequality of work. So this is the gender inequality finding of the report. Then the social inequality. Social inequalities means how we are treating the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes in a society. The Oxfam India stated that the country marginalized communities such as Dalit, Adivasi, Muslim, women, and the informal sector workers are continuing suffering in the system that prioritize the survival of the richest. If we go and see the situation of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes in a village area in our country, the situation is very pathetic. They are earning on a daily basis like the 150 rupee, 200 rupee, but they are paying the same taxes the rich person is paying. If I am buying a packet of milk, I need to pay the same tax as paid by the Ambani and Adani. If I'm going to buy some two-wheeler, four-wheeler, I need to pay the same tax, but my earning is very less as comparison to the earning of a top 10 rich person. So this is the finding of the reports. Yes, indirect taxes. Because in the GST, we are completely paying the indirect tax. And the spending of a poor on health, if we say the spending of the poor on health is higher as comparison to the percentage of income of the rich person, they need to pay the more health expenditure, more education expenditure, and the more social service expenditure as compared to the rich person in our country. So this is also becoming a dividing states in India between the rich and the poor, getting the social security, getting the health services, getting the education services, and increasing the inequality in the country. So the report saying the poor in India are paying disproportionately higher taxes and spending more on essential items and services when compared to the rich. And it is all in the percentage form, we can say. If I am earning a 1 lakh rupee here and I am spending 10,000 rupee in a monthly basis on my health income, then it's at 1%. If a same person is earning 10,000 and spending 1,000 on health, it's a 10% of his spending. So here we can say how the spending on the health and the education increasing the inequality in our country. Similarly, what are the measures suggested by this report? These are the issues highlighted by the reports. Oxfam International, the social inequality, the spending on the health, education, the taxation structure of India, which is directly impacting the poorer section of the society. And the report is also saying, if we increase the tax, the 5% tax on the top 10% of a country, they can contribute to the education of all the children in a country. So this is the report's major finding. Now comes to the what is the suggestion given by the report, what can be done to remove this inequality. They said to implement the inheritance tax. If I am inheriting some property or some amount of rupee from my parents, I need to pay some tax. They are saying increase the inheritance tax, property tax, and the land taxes. Property tax means if you are buying a property today and it's increasing by 200% by 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, you need to pay property tax on the gain as well as yearly property tax. Like in Delhi, the MCD is having power to get the property tax of this area. So on a each shop, they are getting a property tax on a yearly basis or maybe the 6 monthly basis. And as well as in order to reduce inequality and generate revenue for the social programs, they are saying the government will get the revenue from the property tax, land tax, inheritance tax. Then they can spend this taxation in the form of the service providing to the lower strata of the society, like the providing of the education services, providing of the health services. Like the example of this, I can say Pradhan Mantri Insurance Scheme, Ayushman Bharat Yojana. It's a social security scheme for the health, providing to the lower strata of the society which are earning the income less than the 5 lakh rupee. So similarly, the government is using the tax from the one side and spending on the other side, so they can decrease the inequality in a country. Then to enhance the budgetary allocation on the health sector. Anybody can tell about the budgetary allocation on the health sector? Current, what is the कितना percent है GDP का जो हम अपनी health पे? It's near about the 1.3 to 1.4%. 3% to 1.4% spending on health of GDP. It's percentage of the GDP. 1.3% to 1.4% of GDP we are spending on the health. But the report is saying also the Health Ministry is saying we need to increase this spending to 2.5% of our GDP. Means almost double. We need to spend almost double on our health system so that we can provide a good health infrastructure, good health services at primary level, secondary level, as well as the tertiary level to the person. We see the situation at the COVID, the unavailability of the bed in the hospitals, unavailability of the ambulance, unavailability of the oxygen to the person. And the scenario you people see at your time, what was the major scenario? The major health crunch, major health infrastructure crunch, doctor shortage in our country. So if we increase this spending, then it will increase the number of the doctor every year. It will increase the number of the hospital nearby. It will provide a higher services to the lower strata as well as the middle strata of the society. Then specific for the education also, the Oxfam International report is saying if we're spending a 6% on education, then we can provide education to the all the children in the country. Anybody tell about the current spending on the education? Approximately 3.2 to 3.3%. 3.2 to 3.3% on the spending on the education. Even our national education, new education policy 2020 also suggests of spending the 6% of GDP on education system. But we are only mentioning in the bills, we are only mentioning in the acts, we are only mentioning in the our like जो policy है उन पे हम mention कर रहे हैं, but we are not taking a step in increasing the spending. If you see the some of the states and some of the villages and some of the panchayat in our country, if we are allocating the budget of 2 crore, 3 crore, 5 crore, they are not able to spend that on the education. They are returning the budget also. So there is a policy lack. How we can spend those money for a good purpose, how we can create a good asset for the country. So there is a need to work on the policy purpose, need to work on the spending on the education system, spending on the health system. So this is a major suggested by the Oxfam International report. To combat these problems, the Oxfam urged higher taxes on the rich through a combination of measures, including one-time solidarity. They are saying if the poor and rich here, we are paying the same taxes on the GST on the consumable products. The report is saying if we add extra 10 to 15% tax, one-time tax, you will pay a one-time tax on your income. And there is no need to pay tax because their income is not coming under a taxation category. So this income can be used for the prosperity of the country in a social work, in education work, or in a health work. So they are suggesting an extra 10 to 15% of the tax on the rich society of the person so that they can be spending on the other social work. Then the Oxfam International has called for the food company for the windfall tax. Anybody can define the windfall tax? Any company in India recently get this ONGC? In a February 2022, if you find out the government impose a windfall tax on the ONGC, specifically they are mentioning the ONGC because they earn the profit like a 30,000 crores something profits in at a time in 2022 in a February. So the government imposed a windfall tax so they can take extra profit from the company and spending on the increase the spend on the other purpose. So this tax is if any company is getting a supernormal profit. Supernormal profit means if I am getting a profit of 100 rupee per month, but instead of 100 rupee, I am starting getting 600 rupee, 700 rupee profit, then the government will charge a tax known as the windfall tax. कि अचानक से आपकी जो growth हुई है, you need to pay a tax on this one. So this is known as the windfall tax. This windfall tax is yes, they are also mentioning this is happening specifically in an inflation condition in a country. If there is a sudden increase in the inflation of a product and you are having the inventory of that product, so that your profit margin is increasing. Like in the case of onion, we can say, take an Indian example of onion. You are storing an onion of 1,000 ton. At the time of November, December, January, the price of onion is spiking up in India. So that you are having a storage and at that time the price was 5 rupee per kg, 10 rupee per kg. But after time you are selling it 100 rupee per kg. So there is a huge difference between the profit. Initially, you are getting a 5 rupee per kg profit. Now you are getting a 50, 60 rupee per kg profit after your expenses. So this type of thing is happening in the oil products. If you are importing anything from the foreign country, so the government is spending, implementing a windfall tax on those companies so they can spend that tax on other social purpose. So this is a major of the revenue for the government. If the windfall tax is increasing, if the gaining of the company is increasing suddenly, then it will become a like a revenue source for the government, so that the government will spend these money on a social basis like health and education as well as the infrastructure as well. Okay, so this is mainly seen in the food company. Windfall tax is mainly seen in the food company as well as in the oil company. Which company? Which are importing the oil in the country. If you see in the last 1 year, the price of the petrol is increased from the 80 to 100, 75 to 100. And if the price of the crude oil is decreasing, the price of the oil is not decreasing in the country. That's a major reason behind the windfall tax. As well as during the COVID time, our oil company have a huge storage of the oil. at a very less cost. So they are making a huge profit at nowadays. So it's the main reason behind they are exporting it. Now, windfall tax, we already look at. Windfall tax are a tax imposed on the unexpected or extraordinary profits, such as those made during the times of economic crisis, war, or the natural disaster. Government typically one of tax retrospectively over and above the normal profit. जितना आपका profit है उसके ऊपर जो भी आपने profit किया है, the government will charge a tax. Rates may be 10, 20, 30. That may be decided by the government only. So where the windfall tax in a country can be used, कहाँ use किया जा सकता है? At the time they are charging on a ONGC in February. They are getting a 597% of huge profit in 2022. So the government charge a windfall tax on it. Due to fuel fertilizer subsidy, the government will provide a subsidy to the fuel, subsidy to the fertilizers, and the hit in revenue comes at a time when domestic oil and gas producers have seen a sharp rise in the profit. So government की जितनी भी schemes हैं related to the welfare, either it's Ayushman Bharat, either it's related to the food subsidy, either it's related to the PDS, like the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, that is continuing from the COVID time. Now it's merged with the PDS and now it started again with the same name. So this is, iski funding jo bhi hoti hai, that is coming from the other taxes, other revenue sources that is government is getting from the other revenue sources, like a regular revenue sources se nahi, that's over and above jahan se aa raha hai wo, cess se aa raha hai, like a specific cess they are mentioning, education cess on the petrol, agriculture cess on the petrol, they are getting some of the revenue from here. So they are spending in the welfare person. Then now it's better to know about the Oxfam International as well, because this company is releasing the report. Oxfam International is a confederation of the 21 independent charitable organizations. We can say it's a type of NGO. It's partnered with the local community and the more than 90 countries. It's partnered with the more than the 90 countries. It's a mission to injustice that cause poverty. We see in a case of inequality, in case of the gender inequality, as well as the social inequality. It saves lives and help rebuild livelihoods when a crisis strikes. The campaign so that voice of the poor influence the local and the global decision. So sometimes they directly ask the question, inequality report is released by which of the following organization? This is the very simplest question they can ask. Or another question they can ask on a trend basis. The inequality is in India is increasing from the last 10 years steadily. There is a increase in a gap between wage gap between the male and female in country steadily. So this type of the statement can also be asked. In 2018-19, they started the asking question on a trend basis, and the specifically data is picking from the economic survey, and this is the data of the only from the government data. The report is released only from the government data, the data of the NFHS 5. Yes, Oxfam data is from the NFHS 5. वहां से उन्होंने pick up किया पूरा data, then they release this report. Now that was the current part. Now come to basic. How we can it link with the Lorenz curve and the Guinea coefficient? They are asking the question on this basis. Link current with the your basic syllabus, so the static syllabus. So the measurement of inequality through the Guinea coefficient, and the graphical representation is known as the Lorenz curve. In Guinea coefficient, it's measured between 0 to 1. 0 to 1. If our country is on 0, means perfectly equal. A condition जहाँ पे सबके पास same equality है, हर किसी के पास same पैसा है, having the same amenities, can access to the same things. But in case of 1, highly inequality. In a case of 1, in the highly inequality, 0 is the ideal condition, and 1 is the we are going to take up. Now in India, it's in between 0.6 to 0.7. Inequality rate in India 0.6 to 0.7. The distribution of income in an economy is represented by the Lorenz curve, and the degree of income inequality is measured through the Gini coefficient. Let's see the graph. This is a 45-degree. If any country is on this graph, means all are perfectly equal, an ideal condition. If any country is lying on this line, means the inequality is starting increasing. So this is about the Gini coefficient as well as the Lorenz curve. Sometimes they can ask about the pairs question. They will give you the Phillips curve, they will give you the Lorenz curve, and 1-2 other curves. So you need to know कौन सा curve किसके लिए directly basis है. So there is a CSET question for you basis on this one. If you see the 2018-19 CSET paper, there was a question on the basis of the government policy, government data. They're asking on it. So that's why it's a question. Try to attempt it. The Lorenz curve given below show the distribution of land among the population of a country. What percentage of the land is owned by the top 40% of the people? Read the question carefully. What percentage of the land is owned by the top 40%? Top 40%. If I will say the 60% of people is having only the 20% of the land, then the top 40% is getting the 80% of the land. टॉप 40%। तो यही गलती आप सी सेट में करते हैं, तो इसीलिए सी सेट में फेल हो जाते हैं। ट्राई टू बी कि क्वेश्चन क्या कहना चाह रहा है, क्वेश्चन समझ जा रहे हो, डायरेक्ट आंसर आपके सामने ही है। तो यू नीड टू प्रिपेयर लाइक दिस, कि इस तरीके से ही आपको एग्जाम को प्रिपेयर करना है। ओके।